Welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday night Creator Convo. I'm Noelle Marshall and I'm here with my beloved.
Hi everybody, it's Bob. Delighted to have this conversation this evening with Patricia and with Laura with us about evolutionary relationships. Really been looking forward to this and particularly looking forward to our conversation afterwards. Hope all of you can stay for conversation. Thanks for being with us.
So let me tell you a little bit about Laura George. She is Reverend Laura George. She's also a lawyer. She's executive director of the Oracle Institute, which is centered, it's an educational charity centered in the Peace Pentagon in Independence, Virginia. Oracle is a spiritual think tank that studies the nexus between religion, politics, human rights, and conscious evolution. Oracle operates a spirituality school, award-winning publishing house, and global peace practice. Laura is a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, lead minister of the Oracle Temple, and author of the award-winning Oracle trilogy, The Truth, The Love, and most recently, The Light. So it is also on the campus there is also where she is developing a residential Valley of Light. So she's looking for top tier co-creators to have a community of cultural creatives. Another thing about Laura is she's my friend. And she and I went to the same high school together, but we never knew each other. And then through Barbara Marks Hubbard, that little nexus brought us together. And the Oracle Institute and the Peace Pentagon, which is in that picture behind her, beautiful on the New River, beautiful 22-acre campus. We were there recently with our a lot of our church group and United Religion folks. It's a wonderful place, and you know, it's worth the visit and to get to know Laura some more. So without any further ado, Laura, would you like to just give a brief hello to our co-creators that have come here tonight?
Sure. It's always a delight to be with the Co-Creators Convergence. And yes, even though we went to the same high school, we we're just a couple years apart in age. I knew Noelle's younger sister and didn't get to meet her until later, although I went to a lot of parties at her house. I'll just say, the Marshalls threw good parties. So yes, it's just been a wonderful friendship that blossomed later, thanks to our beloved Barbara. And tonight, I'm excited because it's one of our authors who is going to be doing the main presentation. I'm interviewing her. Her name is Patricia Albere. She is an evolutionary pioneer because we're going to be talking about the we space. And this is the new area that's considered the cutting edge of consciousness. Because in comparison to sitting on a mountaintop and trying to reach enlightenment in a solo way, imagine how much more challenging it is to do it in a group setting. And that's what we're going to talk about, because this is what we all need to do now. We're interconnected and we need to evolve in a fashion that allows for collective and mutual awakening. So I think you're going to really enjoy the video, and then we can do some Q&A afterward. Hello, and now it's time to introduce our guest for the evening, who is Patricia Albere, the founder of the Evolutionary Collective and someone who is known internationally as a contemporary spiritual teacher and visionary, as well as a recognized leader in the emerging field of post-personal development. Over the past 40 years, Patricia has helped over 200,000 people transform their lives and consciousness. In 1971, Patricia found herself at the leading edge of the human potential movement as an original founder of EST, Bernhard Seminar Training, currently known as Landmark Education. Working with cultural icon and transformational movement pioneer Werner Erhard, Patricia played a pivotal role in expanding EST's reach into the world by both teaching worldwide and developing and training the organization's leaders. She also has had the unique experience of a sustained dual awakening which resulted in a different kind of realization, a dual realization. This experience led to the discovery of the essential components of an awakened we space that is transforming our understanding of what is possible in the space between us and the attainment of true unity consciousness. Patricia also is the best-selling author of Evolutionary Relationships, Unleashing the Transformative Power of Mutual Awakening, a title we were very proud to publish at Oracle Press. Through the practices contained in this book and her hands-on training courses, Patricia has assisted people in learning the mutual awakening practice. Her goal is to propel the emergence of a new world, a world based not on divisiveness and hyper-individualism, but on unity, caring, love, and compassion. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you so much, Laura. It's good to be with you. So actually in beginning, true to your introduction of me, instead of beginning, let's say, with a meditation or a centering practice, which usually has people, close their eyes and kind of go into their more subjective experience. So our subjective experience is what I call the in and down. You close your eyes and you kind of go in, you go down, you sense into your body, your root chakra, your sense of emotions, whatever's there, what your head's doing, etc., so that you're more present, which is always a good idea. However, what I'm teaching is a different kind of awareness and consciousness. It actually is intersubjective awakening. And intersubjective awakening has to do with you and I and us with the people that are listening, being inside. It's like an inner space, but it's not inner over here. It's like we're leaning in and we're entering into a space together where there's coherence and congruence. And it's kind of like when you're listening to music, there's a certain quality where if you have a large group of people and the music's really amazing, everybody is not feeling into their root chakra. They're lost in something that's greater with everyone, and there's some kind of a joy in that experience. This is like that, but more, because it's actually a new kind of consciousness. So the way I'm going to ask people to at least begin to make that a little bit present, and then we'll talk more about it, in our conversation together, is if you can, instead of going in and down, or listening as you listen to Laura and I from a place of, do I like what they're saying? You're comparative. Usually we compare, we think about if we like what's being said. If you can, instead of going to those places, think about that later after the conversation, just coming inside and use my voice. So you can place your awareness anywhere. So if you place your attention and you allow my voice, which is actually not located anywhere, to just be like where we all just go. So there's my voice and the silence. And you can get a sense of even just between Laura and I, like all of a sudden we're like a little more in, and we're more in the same space together. And the more you can lean into that and let go, and actually, the way to learn from anyone is to be so inside them that you experience almost being them as they're speaking. That's the way to really get what's there. So this sense of oneness and coming inside together is what I'm going to ask. So just come back into my voice, and see if you can really bring your full attention to being inside together as we speak. That'd be great.
It's beautiful. And it is a different type of training. It absolutely is. And many of us haven't had this sort of training. So I'm really excited to bring this topic to the CCC audience. And I'm going to start with a really simple question now, which is, can you define shared unity and mutual awakening for us, and explain why this is so important and why it's cutting edge?
That's a profound. It's a simple question, but there's like a big answer. So as you mentioned in the introduction, you know, I'm just turned 70. Last October, I'm about to be turned 71, which is always a frightening experience. I'm like, oh my God. And I've been working with people since I was 18. So, you know, you do the math. And all of my work up until about 15 years ago was always in this subjective inner development, you know, spiritual, psychological shadow, creating what you want, creating a life that you love, working with possibility, working with different kinds of ways of thinking and beliefs, and, you know, everything in the middle. I taught the Enneagram sort of in detail. I know lots of the different systems. So, you know, as far as the individual and working with people to help them to have, you know, lives that they love and to have consciousness that's as awakened as possible, that was my devotion. And around 15 years ago, I just kind of felt like, okay, and like there was something that was like, I don't know what, you know, I'm gonna have to jump back and share an experience that happened some time before that, but I just was like, okay, there's something in me that's ending. And I want people to be happy and I want people to be awake, and there's no question about it. But I just was like, am I supposed to retire? I don't know what's going on here. And something was finishing. And before that happened, a number of years previously, I had fallen in love with a mystic, with this beautiful German, very handsome, very compelling young man. He was 8 years younger than I was. And we fell in love, and we were together for 4 years. And we entered into what I call, what you're familiar with, is this dual awakening. So instead of going into a cave and meditating and having an individual awakening, you know, where you lift into something beyond and you experience oneness with existence, we were taken in the way that we were together. We were so inside the same space. It's like we were, and some people would call that merged, but it wasn't. It was like we were somehow completely inside. I could feel every single thing with him. He could feel me. And there was something bigger that was in control of the relationship. Like it wasn't just about how beautiful it was or the most amazing connection and the sexuality and the love and the, you know, all of the wonderful things that one would want in a great love. But we were being taken and purified and continuously, like in 24 hours, shown like this oneness, this ever deepening oneness that revealed my divinity in a way that was breathtaking to me. Do you know what I mean? It was almost like I was, you know, I was in it, but I was also like, oh my God. And also for him, like I was with this divine being. And when his ego would kick in or my ego would kick in, you know, we would love and tolerate each other. But it wasn't that. It was like I got to be with, it was like being with the divine. And there was this wholeheartedness and this being taken, and we were not in control. So we had 4 years of that, and it was the most exquisite thing imaginable. Like I wouldn't have missed that for anything. And then he died. So, you know, you can imagine the nightmare of not only losing someone you love that much, but also the space. But it never occurred to me, because we were mystics, we were sort of like dueling mystics. It never occurred to me that what we had experienced, even though I was working with people all the time, that it had anything to do with them. It's really funny. Like I'm only realizing this after the fact. You know, it was like 10 or 15 years where I never tried to share it ever. Like it just didn't occur to me, which is kind of fascinating. And
Well,
go ahead. What were you
I was
gonna
just going to say, yeah, it started out as this amazing sacred union with Peter.
Yeah.
And I could see why at first you would say, well, that was this unusual situation with this unusual and mystical human being.
Right.
but then eventually you start connecting these dots, that
Well,
it
it
could be
just didn't have any-
broader.
It didn't have anything. No, it wasn't even that. It just didn't have anything to do with anybody. I didn't even know what it was for. I didn't know why I was given it and why it was also taken away. I was a little pissed off. I mean, there was a part of me that was like, what? Like really, you brought me into heaven and then you took him, it was like somebody took him. So when I had this realization about working with people individually, around that time, all of a sudden started to dawn on me that possibly what we had experienced was a preview. And it wasn't about a lover. It wasn't about just being with, this amazing other, who's your beloved, that the way we were being was possibly a preview of how humans were destined to come into oneness. And then I started working with some people and it just kept showing and showing and showing and showing. It kept revealing that oneness, not knowing myself so completely. Like we had been working on authentic voice and everything was about me, becoming more myself, which is a good thing. But if you look and you see you have 8 billion people, even if you could get everybody up to the fact that they all know themselves and they're working on their shadow, you still don't have a world that works. I promise you, if everybody was the Dalai Lama, it still wouldn't work because we're separate.
Yes. Yeah. The interconnection piece is just as important, right? Or more important.
I mean, it helps. Like everybody told you, like if you do your work, then the world will work. Well, maybe not. It doesn't look like that's the case. That if you work on yourself, and we have a lot of beautiful people, many millions of people working on themselves, the world is in probably one of the worst places it's been in a long time. So it was like, and this was a while ago. This was before COVID. This was way before we demonstrated as a humanity that even when it gets really scary, we don't come together.
Mm-hmm.
If we thought a big disaster would bring us together, cross that one off, because that's not true. People are just
I agree.
crazy. I mean, people
they'll circle the wagons in whatever way is comfortable for them. But yeah, I mean, people tend to get even more tribal if there's a disaster. Yeah.
True, right?
Yeah.
So I started, in my own small ways, like it's like a geek in the garage. I started sort of, experimenting with these beautiful people that trusted me. They were amazing people anyway. And we started to discover that in fact, moving into this shared oneness was not only possible, but it was also possible to like start to build almost like a larger organism, bigger than just two people.
Yes.
And that the shared circuitry, and it wasn't co-creating. Co-creating is still high duality. The best you have is high duality, orchestrated. Because, when you try to get two people to do anything, even if they're very enlightened, it's tough. You're somebody who's trying to organize people.
Yeah, we're trying to do an intentional community. I'm with you, sister. I'm following along. Yes. Yes.
No matter how conscious people are, it's in separation, we're terrible. Do you know what I mean? Human beings in separation just we just bounce into each other, even though we want to do better, but it's like the way we're designed, human 1.0 can't help themselves. So what I designed was a practice, because I'd never done that before, to recreate where Peter and I went. And I called it the Mutual Awakening Practice, so that I could begin to initiate people and bring people who were interested together mutually inside this shared unity. And that when you did that, not only did they experience oneness, but it was almost like a new world opens up. Like you're still here, but it's kind of like when you're in love, you're here, but you're also somewhere else together.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes very real. And you realize that actually is the future. Do you know what I mean? Like where we're headed, the babies that will be born into this time, which is different than being born into 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s. will be more designed for what I'm seeing and what I'm seeing as a reality with the people that I'm, that I'm working with in oneness. So that's my answer.
And well, that was good. We're getting into the meat of it right now. I agree with you. This is way beyond co-creating.
Yeah.
And I think Barbara Marx Hubbard chose that term because what was cresting at the time was a stage 6 green meme, new age consciousness.
Right, right.
But what you're talking about and what we're trying to build here at our campus is a second tier level of consciousness where that beehive mentality in the first tier, we think of those people as our early ancestors. They had a beehive mentality, but they were living in the same space. So we're trying to recreate that, but at the second tier. And for those of you who don't know spiral, that means just a way more advanced version of group living and working with one another and connecting with one another. And so, yeah, Patricia is at the forefront of, we use the word we space a lot in the book, and anything else you can tell us to further illuminate what you mean by that, because it's very hard for most people even to grasp what we're talking about, because most of them haven't experienced it yet.
Right, right. Well, it's interesting because I'm aware of the spiral dynamics, and there, I'm going to give you another model because you can, like, sometimes when you have more than one model, it gives you the flavor of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't contradict, they kind of further flush out, what it is that we're speaking about. I'm going to speak from an evolutionary standpoint. So I'll do the really fast version of evolution. And evolution, not the Darwinian, I don't even, I've not studied Darwin, and there's all kinds of conversations about that. But just the fact that existence is created. I don't think anybody debates that. So evolution is a miraculous force. It's the most miraculous force there is. Human faith, human ingenuity is nothing compared to the force of evolution. So evolution went from light. So we'll just start at the light stage. Where did that come from? Who knows? But the light turning into matter, which makes no sense. That's the first miracle. Like, how did light turn into rocks and water? And like, how did that happen at all? So, but it did, and it created the geosphere. So we'll just talk about Earth. We want to talk about the rest of the universe. So the geosphere was matter, but no life. None. Yes. For a very long time. And then all of a sudden, again, kind of out of nowhere, a jump. And life began. And little, forms, and, eventually there were fish and there were other forms. And as the biosphere filled out, we have one of the most gorgeous biospheres that we're destroying, but it's so beautiful with trees and animals and plants and birds and fish and little insects. And, it's just this gorgeous life force. And distinct about the biosphere is it has no mind. That's why we love it. We love going to the beach because it's quiet. We love walking in the mountains because, with our dog or something, the only mind that's there is yours. It's very quiet. So it had that and then humans started to move out of the animal, form into having, boom, the next thing, which is the noosphere, the thinking layer of the earth, which is humans having self-reflective consciousness. So the moment we could think about thinking, the moment we downloaded a compartmentalized mind that actually could think in straight lines and language and numbers, civilization was born. And the pyramids got created in different places simultaneously. How the hell did that happen? Because nobody knew each other. There was a download as a humanity, 10,000 years ago, 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, that literally created a whole different world. And like the biosphere, when there were just little organisms, and now there's this fecund, it's like this world of fullness, humans had a little bit of language, a little bit of this, and now it's so full. You know, the noosphere, the thinking layer of the earth, you know, my table, this computer, you know, the fact that I have glasses on is all created by humans. Human thinking has created everything except for the biosphere. And it is full, full, right? And we can do all of that in separation. And we were designed to grow in separation, to find ourselves, to find our voice, to learn how to be humans and make choices in the light and dark, and, you know, the righteous and the you know, the bad people and the wars and stuff. So it was all that sort of video game, basically, for humanity. The next one I call the spondosphere. So the next layer is not the thinking layer. It's like when humans begin to move into the shared unity, it's a different livingness. It's like as different as the air is to land, is to water, is the spondosphere. It doesn't have, the mind is not the same. It's more dominant by this living aliveness and connectivity. It's almost like you have this larger sense of a nervous system that's like in each other, in everything. And the whole thing, your senses are different, the way you know things, you're not as strategic. You know, like, what are the 5 steps to doing something, and how's that going to work, and how do I meditate the right way? Even those are all strategic ways of being. In the spondosphere, there's the strategy kind of falls away and beings become more pure again. The meek shall inherit the earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think they were right about that. So
I
about the spondosphere.
I also agree with everything you just said. I mean, people have been using, I hadn't heard your term for it before. You know, people have been predicting this 5th world. We call it the 5th paradigm, but it is going to be a new age for humanity. Absolutely. And so many people are working on it from different aspects. I'm thinking of Riane Eisler right now, who calls it the age of partnerism, or the return of partnerism. There was a very, very brief period of time in which men and women lived as partners on the planet. It didn't last that long. So your work to me is so critical, because I actually can't think of anybody else who is cutting edge in this manner. I mean, many people are recognizing, and I love what we put on the back of your book. There was a comment I got right here, something about for millennia, spiritually has been a deeply personal pursuit, monks on mountaintops and yogis in caves. And this isn't that anymore. In fact, how easy would that be? How easy would that be to go find a cave in Tibet and perfect yourself? But that's not what this is about anymore. That's not where the God game's going. We got to do this collectively.
Yeah,
we're toast. That's the new test for where we are. So I agree with everything you're saying, and just want you to keep sharing your amazing teachings. I've got more questions here, but I think we're doing better on our own. One of the things people, when they first learn about your work, the confusion that sets in, because again, the New Age movement was really good at telling people, work on yourself. Yeah. And once you fix yourself, the world will just magically, right? You'll wake up one day and the world will be magically into this new paradigm. Help us understand why that's not so any longer, where working on yourself is all you need to be doing.
Well, look around. I mean, I don't think I need to say anything. Just if you look at reality, is not true. And in fact, if you look at some of the things that look like, well, I have nothing to do with that, you know, the sort of more political things and the things where everybody's living in their own reality. The fact that, see, when you're dealing with, I call it sort of all right, so let me say a couple of different things. So the incarnational self, so incarnating as an individual, is one way of arriving here. And I'm going to say that will eventually be over. All right. So I'm going to talk about what it will look like. But for now, when you incarnate here and you have past lives and you have your ancestors and you have your lineage, you have alcoholics in your family, so you've got certain things in your DNA and blah, 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 like all of that stuff that we're all pretty familiar with. There's a way that you're working on yourself in order to rise up as much as you can and to move up into higher levels of non-dual consciousness. So the best it gets there is like you're a saint.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you win that game, if you win that game completely, you're a saint. You're Mother Teresa or the Dalai Lama or one of those people. So obviously, and everyone's working, it helps.
It does help.
If you're in a certain design, so if you just think design, creation and design, in that design, it's designed on free will. Free will means there's the light and the dark, and you're choosing, and it's based on experiential learning. So you choose this way, you have a certain experience. You choose this way, you have a certain experience. You choose differently, you go this way. It's very clunky. It takes a lot of self-forgiveness. You have to forgive other people. I mean, there's a lot of beauty to it. It's very slow.
It's slow, and most people don't figure out the polarity that you're describing. I mean, it's a very slow process. Yes.
Really slow. So having, 6,000 years at least of that, going from being very, very tribal, very communal, not even like hoping to be able to experience heaven before you die. All of what we've been through has been quite a journey in that particular design. What I'm asserting, okay, I can't prove it, but I'm going to assert this, is that this next level is not that. It's literally like we're being given. The unity is already here. Like there's a unity that you can't access from the individual soul.
Exactly. Yes.
That's not made for it. Okay. What I teach people when they do the practice, because I'm all about access. For me, theories are wonderful, but I'm very practical. In the end, it's like I want people to experience it, to light up and to live it. Because if not, I might as well retire.
Well, it's becoming.
I'm not a thought leader. I actually am not a thought leader. I am like, I want it to happen for real. And it is happening for real in at least in my world, the people that I'm allowed to get my hands on. So what's coming is this unity. There's a different source of self, which I call the origination point. It's not the soul. It's not the authentic self. It's not essence. It's not any of the things that I worked on and experienced in myself and experienced some very high states. It's like when you look into the other person's eyes, when you're accessing the connection, like I did with Peter, from the origination point, it's given, and you don't look back at yourself. There's no self-reflection. The way the whole thing kind of co-arises. The unity, I see you, I feel myself, the whole thing, and then we start to be taken somewhere. And if you start thinking about yourself, you go separate.
Yes. Yes. It is a totally different field. And
yeah,
I'm thinking of the retreat I just returned from recently at the Evolutionary Leaders Retreat. And they definitely created a field of consciousness that was way above average, certainly a beautiful we space. There were moments when I felt what you're describing there. And then I'm leading up to the next question. Once you're able to access such a field, once you're able with others to be in, it's beyond the co-creative space. Again, it's really a magical liminal space that's new, I think, to most humans, and is even new to me. I mean, I've only experienced it with others a few times, but once you get there, at the retreat, we were trying to figure out how do we help others experience it. And comes my question. This is a heavy one, Patricia. In the past, we had, a Gandhi lead a movement to help increase consciousness on the planet. We had Martin Luther King lead a movement to help increase consciousness on the planet. do you see this as something that could be shared on a broader basis, as in a movement? I'm not, and we could get into what that might look like, but I'm just curious about that question alone. Could this become a movement? Are there enough people here who have experienced it to lead the way?
Well, here's the way I see the movement, because I have a very, like, it has to be for real. Like, I have to be able to feel it and taste it. And it's got to be like, like in people, that it's real. Okay. And when we teach people how to move into the space, it's more than just reading the book that we published together. I mean, part of what I realized was that they couldn't read the chapter and find it because they'd be doing it subjectively, even though you tell them not to. So if I ask you, what are you experiencing? You're going to tell me your subjective experience. I'm going to listen compassionately. We're separate. Okay. So you have to really initiate people. You have to bring them and then bring them and bring them and then give them the experience and let them work with people who genuinely know how to go there. So for me, here's the movement I would love to see. And as you know, I almost died this year.
Yes.
Cancer got
We're happy you are here with us.
I'm pretty good, right? I feel
You look fantastic. You look fantastic.
I went right to the edge, and I have looked death in the face. So who knows? You never know how long you're going to be here. So it isn't about me. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, what I was excited about when I thought I was going to die was that what I had created was so alive. All the people were like, this has to go on no matter what. Like they were.
Mm-hmm.
It was so vivid. And I wasn't teaching for 3 months, and the other teachers were teaching, and the whole thing. And it was just like tangible. You could feel the brightness of it. So we teach people how to do it, but then we have a global community. So here's what I see. So we have a global community once a day, 3 times a day, depending on the day. We have practices. So people from all over the world who know how to practice get on with each other, practice for half an hour. There's a teacher there, people share, and it's just like, you're completely undone. You've had like a sacred, if anyone knows what real spiritual power is, when you've been around spiritual power, there's spiritual power.
Absolutely.
Completely different than when you got on. It's not just like a nice practice. It's like, whoa. And what I imagine is that you'd have thousands and thousands and thousands of people coming and practicing from all over the world, different languages. Like if you had people meeting there a half an hour a day, you're practicing with someone in Russia and you're practicing with someone in someplace, I mean, it undoes all the, well, we've got to all come together and, you're this and it's kind of like, it's so beyond what color you are or what sex you are, or what pronoun you have. I mean, it's just like, it makes all of that look so more superficial than the deep place of intimacy and connection where you're just like undone. So to me, I really feel like that alone, now there may be other iterations, but if we could get as many people inside that and just keep building that out so that people from all over the world could meet, and meeting on Zoom is better than in person. So the other thing, it is, I swear, like I thought, because I was an in-person person, and what happens is you have like 60, 70, 80 people. And they're from all over, South Africa, and this place and that place, coming online, it's live. And what happens is you feel like everyone is so present. And so like all of a sudden, the moment you get there, the unity is already there. There's a living connectivity that's happening throughout the world as that group meets. And then they're practicing together, and then another group and another group. So there's something that's weaving something around the planet rather than it's local, which is very curious because I would never have said that. I thought, well, it's always better to be personal, but it was like, no, there's something right about this. And that you're practicing with these people that you would never meet, that you would never have anything to do with because they live in Belgium, and I
So
live in Europe.
let's take this out.
Yeah.
Let's take this thread to the next step. All right. So let's assume, and I know already there are these groups meeting
Yeah,
based
we
on
are.
the training that you provided, based on legitimate paths to unity consciousness. So there are these groups meeting around the world. How does that ability to raise the frequency to create this unitive field for a group of humans, whether in person or on Zoom, how does that impact the larger world? How do you see that as assisting us in shifting the paradigm? Is it going to be a numbers game, like more and more people have to acquire that skill set and that ability? Or do you think, sort of like the 100th monkey thing, do you think if there were enough of us at that level of connectivity, that would tip us into the new paradigm?
Two things. So I think number one, at the very beginning of things, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but I have karma in this area. So I had a relative, Lucretia Coffin Mott, who in 1838 helped create the very first feminist thing in America.
No, I did not know that.
Seneca
How
Falls
interesting.
Conference, the Seneca Falls.
Really? One of your ancestors
And who was the other one? The famous one.
at Seneca Falls, or?
At Seneca Falls, like they went to England and they weren't let in for the abolitionist thing, and they were sitting in the lobby and they were like, okay, we got to do something. And so did that meeting with the 300 people make a difference in 1838, like 30 years before the Civil War? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, she spent her life fighting both of those things, but it has to start somewhere.
Yes. And it has ripple.
I have another two relatives that created the first car company, the Duryea brothers, and it was 3 years before Ford. So they were like lunatics trying to create cars, but there were no roads. There were roads for horses.
But they're cutting that new groove, and they're preparing that new groove in the evolutionary spiral.
So
that
matters. No matter what, if I die and there's only 600 people that are actively engaged in this, I'm not worried because it exists and it's being sustained. Okay. Second thing is, you have to remember, evolution's in charge of this, not us. We can cooperate. The children that are being born right around now, who we won't be able to tell what they're like for another 20 years.
Right.
We won't see who they are. Now, if you notice, they're entering into a world that is falling apart. The school systems are falling apart. Everything is coming apart, which makes sense for them. They're not going to fit into the world as it is. So, and the people that are born to these lower, like, evolutionary memes, ways of being, will eventually die because we'll get old. So you have the newness being threaded into the world so that more of the right people can find it. People know it even exists. And they can start to seed that, that foundation. And then also there's there's going to be a different breed of human.
Yes. And we already have a lot of stats on this. Pew reports are great. They're watching sort of, they don't use this terminology, but they're watching the levels of consciousness. And it's a fact that the fastest growing meme on the planet is the green meme, the new age meme, the meme that the kids who are into nature mysticism. So that is the fastest growing grouping of humans. And you're right, a lot of these dinosaurs who are fighting the evolutionary impulse will be gone eventually. But wow, what an ugly moment we find ourselves in with the regression.
But here's the other thing. Those kids that are green, like my son was born in the 80s. The 1980s till around 2012 or after is when the green ones were born. And there you go. Okay. Yeah. Even they're way too individual. They're way too much about themselves. They identify with, I've got ADHD, they've got all kinds of identifications and they're hypersensitive. And that's two separate.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
That's
agreed. Agreed. That's the last
separate.
meme. I mean, if you using the spiral model, that'd be the last meme before second tier. And there's a lot of spiritual narcissism at
Right.
that stage, back to people who are listening to us who are probably shocked right now, thinking,
Yeah.
wait, I've been
Wait a
told I
minute.
work on myself. In
But
fact, the
the
evolutionary
next-
leaders talk about this, that
Well, Greta Thunberg, if you think about her, she's like
yes,
if you, people who think they're on the spectrum, people on the spectrum can't lie. They don't know how. You can't teach them how to
you're
lie.
right. Yeah, you're right.
So another piece that I've taught has to do with strategic and this kind of absorptive receptive, which is the new way of being, which is more that the meek, like this sort of guilelessness. There's more purity. And the world of the world is all like, watch Billions, watch any of those shows. It's all strategic. It's all lying.
Left brain.
Oh my God. I wouldn't survive a minute there. But the new ones, they won't know how to lie. They won't be capable of it. Do you know what I mean? They're going to be wired to not be in survival. And the whole thing is not going to be between good and evil. Like there's a purity coming, like the highest wave of evolution has a kind of no filter purity. It's not emphasizing one thing or another. There's a purity. The individuation is what I said is that kind of divinity. Like there's this intimacy and closeness, and you feel so human in the best way.
Yes.
And so divine in the best way. Do you know what I mean? So it's really another one of those jumps. And that's what sounds heretical. And I don't care, because I stand by that. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like my crazy ancestor, women should have rights.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The kids are definitely coming in different. They're reacting to the culture that they're being born into with horror, and they should. I mean, I remember feeling like that when I was a kid. Like, what is wrong with this planet? How it's run. So they get there a lot faster. I also agree with you. There's some sort of innocence or naivete that I hadn't thought of the word purity, but I understand what you're saying. So I do think they're coming in prepared for this next, spiral. I don't know if you want to touch on this. I don't know if you want to touch on this, but because we're almost out of time, but do you want to talk about AI at all and how that plays into?
That's still on a lower level. Like all the people that can only envision it, that's the noosphere. That's more thinking.
It is.
Inside that paradigm. So that's as far as they can see. And that is not the next level. It's like, that looks stupid. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like the next level, the whole thing, the connection and the liminal state and the rest of it, the whole thing is also being sourced by something greater. So instead of my personal success and what I'm going to learn or what I'm going to get done, it's like we're inside something that's going, let's do this together. It's no longer about just personal success.
And it's also not all about intelligence. I mean, we're becoming more brain balanced. More and more people are able to tap into the intuitive side and connecting not just with other humans, but connecting with other dimensions. And that's really what we're talking about. It's about starting to live in this totally different type of field. Patricia, this has just been wonderful. Is there?
Let me say one quick thing.
Yeah.
Knowledge about is a low level knowledge. To know something, if you can move into complete intimacy, if I can come all the way into you and I can experience being you, I know you. Learning about you, that's pretty primitive. So it's high intelligence.
Oh, I agree. And I think for our listeners, the first stage is going to be somewhat basic, you might think, but I really think your book does a very good job. It's describing it. It's not experience, but you've got these great exercises at the end of each chapter. And also, I don't want to forget to mention, you've offered a free gift to the listeners. So they're
Yeah.
going to get access. I'm going to put the link in the chat. They're going to get access to a self-paced introduction to the Mutual Awakening e-course.
Yeah.
So everyone listening, these are drops of gold and sunlight falling from the heavens here. If you fancy yourself on a spiritual path, this really is where you need to take it next if you haven't explored it yet. And Patricia, I want to give you the final words. How would you like to leave this interview? Inspire all of us.
Yeah, I just, if it calls to them at all, come and learn and be inside this. It is the best kept secret in the world. I will teach you how to move. Taking this 4-week course is not the biggest deal. And you will experience oneness that is extraordinary, and you'll be with other people who actually can go even further. And that's what I want to inspire. I want to inspire as many people who could go there to say, oh, what the hell? You know, I might as well go and find out, because we need you. We need people to move out of their endless obsession with themselves and just say, hey, let's just see what happens when I do this.
Yes.
Please, please, please. That's what I want to inspire. And thank you so much. What a blast talking to you. I love talking to you.
Yeah, it's really good to see you, Patricia. Thank you so much.
Thank
Beautiful.
That was wonderful, Laura. I've got pages of notes. One thing I really love about what she said is evolution is in charge, not us. So whatever you want to call evolution, whatever that is, just go ahead and surrender. But we are being taken through. Barbara Marx Hubbard always talked about the next leap. And of course, Annie is a Teilhard de Chardin expert on the noosphere. That certainly inspired her. And Barbara was our neighbor when we lived in at Sunrise Ranch. She was right across the street. And every day she would, first thing we'd see her and she would say, I'm new, I'm all new. So I had to kind of giggle. I'm new every day. So I believe that Barbara and Patricia were really vibing on the same level, So I'm going to ask Annie to go ahead and unmute or unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Laura. It's great to be in this circle tonight, and thank you for bringing Patricia to us. I've attended a number of her free seminars over the years, and I'm just always so inspired by the way she speaks of the space between us, because it absolutely is something that I've glimpsed here and there. And gosh, that was so fascinating, having become a Zoomie over these, that's what COVID did. It thrust us into the Zoom room, didn't it? And it's just gorgeous. The people that when I reflect each morning about my friends, well, I've got a few local friends, that I think about, but I also, Kate Roberts in South Dakota, and Noelle and Bob in North Carolina, and Chris in Kansas, it's truly a worldwide web, and it's that energetic way that we can know ourselves to be absolutely heartfully connected. I just appreciate that so much, the way that Patricia calls it in. I did also, I noticed the way she spoke of the noosphere, being a Teilhard enthusiast. And of course, Teilhard de Chardin was the one who 100 years ago this year was when that term was coined. I've always thought of it as a kind of technological noosphere, which, we have the World Wide Web and all kinds of ways of connecting via that. I think of it as a lowercase n, and she was talking about consciousness that is beyond consciousness, that there's a spiritual noosphere. I feel it that way, of connectivity, as he imagined it like a, yet another sphere that would absolutely encompass the globe. So I don't know. I didn't, even though she kind of called that out as, oh, the noosphere, that's just part of the old paradigm kind of thing, intellectual and all that. I do believe there's a real spiritual connection that noosphere with a capital N maybe kind of speaks to. So I just really want to thank you for bringing all of this in, and any comment that you want to have on that is great with me.
Yeah, I like you feel that Teilhard de Chardin in The Phenomenon of Man was describing the noosphere as something more than a thinking layer. I too feel he was using language that to me adds a spiritual component. So I wouldn't write off the noosphere to just this new thinking layer. And I think he intended it to represent the field of consciousness that was the next stage of our evolution. So yeah, Patricia talks about maybe the next sphere out, or I think what she's really talking about is how to go there together and how to be able to access that field together. And it's so different than groupthink, right? Like typically what happens when a bunch of people get in a room together, we almost do the opposite of get intimate. Oftentimes we get real nervous, especially if we're an introvert. I'm thinking of my mom right now, who hates being in a group of people she doesn't know. It's really hard for her. So what typically happens is the opposite of what we want to have happen, which is people start getting uncomfortable. And then the next thing that can happen is groupthink kicks in, and you don't want to disagree with anybody. So if somebody says something that you don't agree with, the typical response is usually to keep your mouth shut. And so you don't get to that level of intimacy. I think it's a very rare group that can achieve that field. And in an honest way, right? Not in a way where we're faking it. It's rare, and I've only experienced it a few times. And sometimes she says, don't overthink it. She'll say that field gets created oftentimes when you're not even trying, like in a musical concert, everyone will get that beehive mentality, and in a beautiful way, and in a heart-centered way. So we're experimenting with it as humans now. We haven't lived that way for probably 10, 20,000 years. That's how very early humans lived, with this beehive mentality. And so we're trying to do it again with this level of sophistication that, we're still getting used to. And then there's the bombardment of complexity that adds to the difficulty of achieving the field, right? Just life is really complicated right now. Most humans are having difficulty just navigating that. So it's a pretty rare thing still. And I just want to say one last thing. In her book, she has, at the end of each chapter, there are practices, and they're really helpful. And I've done them, and we do some of them at our community here. So yeah, I think she really is presenting material that's quite novel and still not saturating at the level it should for those of us who want to create the new paradigm.
Yes, and that leads right. I just wanted to add one more thing, and I want to hear what Kate has to say, but that I meant to say before is that I thought it was just so, not just beautiful in itself, but empowering of that and encouraging of that very thing when she spoke about how evolutionary creativity is so much more than even our kind of co-creative human interactions, which are lovely, but the breathtaking diversity and miraculousness of that, and how encouraging that is for us to tap into this space that she's the mutual awakening space, the noospheric space, to tap into that possibility. That's the evolutionary collective right there, right? Happening. Mhm. And and I love that you brought the ancient humans in, because the cave painters and the Mungo people and all these ancient cultures, I absolutely believe that as well. But they didn't know of the global, now we know, and we can really create the whole global family. I love it. Thank you so much for listening.
Well, I wanted to pull on that thread, Annie, actually, of how the ones and zeros have evolved as evolutionary, really, that we've had these experiences of now having these intimate circles for a while, and so we're just off the day of Connection Field 2.0 launching. Connection Field 1 started in 2020. And I think it was a great example of how so many people are, well, Connection Field, get excited because it's Unity Earth, it's the Islands of Coherence, it's the global, and the measuring people, the heart math people are coming into, we now have measurements for this stuff. I think that's plumb exciting. And yeah, again, it's, when I was at Independence, Virginia, I was just perplexed of why, and I'm still perplexed of why I'm not there, really. And, why we haven't yet. I know that some of these little incorporated towns are being created and the small town concept is spreading and stuff. But I don't know. I just think that some of these, I think you can measure the difference in these coherent circles, and there's so many examples of these united meditations and places where we gather on the same platform. And now check out Connection Field. I think it's .net. And next week on Tuesday, the Heart Math people are going to come on for the first time and tell us how we actually do vibe into the censorship and ability to measure the heart rate variability of the group, the coherence of the group. And I think we're learning to, Tony Davis planned imaginal tools. We're honing how to work together in groups, how to have better conversations that allow us to propel the energies of one another into anyway. Just, I don't know if I'm disagreement or agreement. I'm just cheerleading for all of it and appreciating it all, living it all. And I want to just make note, we're going to have a really powerful peace delegation going to Costa Rica real soon. I feel the power of that. That's been building for a while. So Bob and Noel, thanks for that. Oh, you do. So great.
You made me think of something, Kate. Yeah, we tend to be able to achieve this when we set the intention, we're with like-minded souls who support the field. The key, I think, for this becoming more common, more widespread, and also providing the foundation for the shift has to do with how are you acting when you're not with the like-minded souls? How are you acting when and the same thing, you can talk about meditation the same way too. How do you act after you come off the mountaintop, after going into bliss? We'll know we've arrived when we're able to experience that field with more and more strangers. We'll know we're there when we can do it when we're working with others on a project. And I'm thinking of Damanhur right now. And I know Noel and Bob have been there too and love Damanhur. I mean, they're staying in a pretty unified field with one another all the time. So it's not just when, hey, let's get together in the temples, or hey, let's go outside and be spiritual. Like the key is going to be maintaining that level of unitive consciousness when you're physically outside working, when you're in a unitive space, but not focusing on, oh, let me be my best behavior because it's a spiritual moment, And that, I'm thinking Davenport is the only place I've been at where it's pretty commonplace, which makes it unique. They remind me of that scene in Avatar where, everyone's swaying under the tree. That's how I feel about Davenport. I'm like, wow, how did they keep it up? Like it's becoming normal to them. Not the exception, or a rare thing, but like a normal everyday experience. How wonderful would that be?
Bob, that you have your hand raised. I'll just say something about Davenport is, yes, we've been there several times and taken classes, have been there. Our meditation group is led by someone who is an initiate. And we go there and those people are busy. They are busy all the time. They're always creating. And whether they're doing research with the plants, whether they're doing, whether they're building, and they honor creativity. And what blossoms there, it's, their temple for humankind was built in secret inside a mountain, about at least 5 stories deep. It's honoring every belief system, and it's incredible. With no architecture, no drawings, no anything, they just went and created it. No permits, nothing, and it kind of makes the Sistine Chapel look like a cartoon. I mean, I hate to sound disrespectful, but the artistry is incomprehensible without seeing it. So yes, that's an eco-spiritual community sanctioned, recognized by the United Nations. And there's about 700 people there that live in a federation. And I'll agree with you, Laura, that is the best functioning. They have a constitution. It has changed in the 3 decades or so that they've been there. They've changed 11 or 12 times. So they evolve how they live constantly. Now we're still trying to interpret what the founding fathers meant, and how's that working for us? But to be in that space of just saying, well, this isn't working, so we need to improve this. This is what we all, what direction we think we need to go, and then they do it. So it's interesting community in northern Italy if you ever get a chance to visit. So I'll turn it over to Bob. Looks like he has his hand raised.
Thanks, Noelle. I really appreciate the conversation with Annie and Kate also about the collective, and your comment, Laura, about how do we act when we're not around like-minded people, and how do we carry ourselves in the world, how, or as the saying goes, how do we dance when nobody's looking? And and Noelle and I have had a very amazing experience the last month of just that, about being around folks who are not in the moment in a spiritual place, and being able to keep our feet on the ground and our hearts leading in some very challenging experiences, and a number of times we're just exhausted and fall down at the end of the day from working all day helping these other folks realize that we are where we are because we're practicing that spirituality that we've evolved into, to whatever degree we have. I wanted to ask you a question, Laura, and for your reflection, and also whatever you might share about from Patricia, from her books and whatnot, a little bit more about the conversation the two of you were having about the young people, the people that are, quote, coming in now, the young people that are coming in now. And I don't know, it caught my attention when one of you said something about autism, and autistic people can't lie.
Spectrum,
I mean, it's just like,
on the spectrum.
there's the truth. And a number of the people we've been dealing with for the last month are autistic and are on the spectrum. And so we've experienced
I
somebody
think some of them were lying.
saying things that are just, well, not been. It's just truth, and not particularly socially acceptable or appropriate at the moment, or having context in what's going on around them with 3 or 4 people. But say more, if you would, about the young people entering today. And she talked about since 2012 and prior to 2012. I'm really interested in where we're going with those that are joining us.
Yeah, it was Patricia's observation. And it sounds like it's borne out with the experience you've had this last month. And in my experience, when she said it, I went, you know what, you're right. People on the spectrum, we often think of them as lacking social skills, but it's because they're so brutally honest, right? That's why they don't filter their thinking. So I hadn't thought of it that way, but it is true. And they do make us uncomfortable often because of their transparency. And drawing a thread from that observation to the work that Patricia does, that's what she would say is essential, is at the threshold step of going into this sort of practice, is being totally honest, totally transparent, being vulnerable, willing to risk, embarrassing yourself, or willing to risk offending the people you're in the circle with, because there's really no other way to reach a level of intimacy. Again, if you're faking it, it's not happening. And by faking it, I mean, let's all, put our smiles on and be our most spiritual selves, and who's the most spiritual person in the room bullshit, right? So this practice it's like undressing with your friends and getting super clear on the mutual goal of reaching an intimacy that is rarely achieved outside of a beloved situation. And as she said, that's what made, and she didn't think about it at first, but that's what got her in that space, this incredible romance, which then fed into this incredible spiritual union, and they were able to get into that we space together. And they thought it was just because they were in love. And as she said, it took her a long time actually, to realize, what, maybe we should be doing this with friends and family and even people who are new to us. So the other thing I think that is so unique about her work is she's very careful, again, to distinguish between what most of us think of as co-creation, which is a collaborative state, which is exceedingly highly evolved. I mean, make no mistake, you reach the level where you can co-create with others. That is a beautiful space. But I think that's what's so different about her work. She's saying there's this whole other level of collaboration, which takes place and is only possible when you create this other field, this other it's like another dimension. And it sounds like everybody, I mean, I know your audience are all serious about their spiritual growth, so they're going to know what that means. And yeah, I mean, I can't recommend her book enough. We were so honored to do it for her. And her classes also are just amazing. So I had put into the chat the free gift that she offered. Let me say it out loud too, just in case people don't have access to the chat. So if you go to her website, which is evolutionarycollective.com, and you go /intro, that's where the free offer is. And it's a lot. It's a 5 module course. You also get to read the first 3 chapters of Evolutionary Relationships.
Wow.
And then if you want to get the full book, you can go to the Oracle Institute website and order from us. And that's the oracleinstitute.org/bookstore.
Mhm. Wow. Um,
Thanks.
yeah, has she ever like brought a group to the Peace Pedagogy, to the Oracle Institute and conducted such
We've been talking about it for the last couple of years, and I think Bob and Noel know we just had our last retreat for the year and until the Pentagon is done.
Mm.
So we're shuttering the campus. Not totally. People can still visit. But our intent is to get the building done and open next summer, like finally, like totally done. We've been using it, and it is, I mean, that's not a fake picture. It looks completed from the outside, but the inside wasn't finished. So that's what we're going to work on next. And I'm realizing I didn't fully answer your question, Bob, about the kids. Do you want me to say some more about that? My mind spun into a different direction, even though that was your question.
Sure.
This isn't a realm in which I'm an expert by any means, but having read a few books about how these kids appear on the surface, fearful, like some of them aren't even getting their driver's license, right? They don't want to leave their parents' home. There's even research indicating they're afraid to have sex at what we would have considered a normal age, right, Noel? Because we went to the same high school. We knew how to party. Okay, so these kids appear fear-based, and it would be easy to write it off as the post 9/11 atmosphere that was created, you know, cops in schools, all the things that happened after 9/11, which greatly have impacted even my kids.
I think they have anxiety and panic disorders.
They
That's
do.
what
So
we're seeing
that's
a
what I
lot
wanted to
of.
say.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a fear. Well, it might look like that. Yes, there definitely is the anxiety, but it's almost as though they're being prepared for something that a lot of people aren't seeing, which is what's coming. And they seem to be wired for change in a way we're not. Some of us who were born later. It's almost like they know it's coming, like their antenna are up, right? And they know it's coming. And so to us, or to many people, they look either anxious or neurotic or, you know, fear-based. But I think there's an intuitive knowing that they possess, again, almost like an instinct that many humans in denial aren't willing to feel if they do have the same intuitive antenna. And so there seems to be a lot of evidence that they either coming in wired differently, or they're definitely getting wired because of the technology, and they can handle way more stimuli than older people can. They can multitask better than older people can. And I can only conclude that that is going to be an evolutionary advantage when this collapse occurs.
So how do we lay that against the factual statistics of young people's suicide, teen suicide, stupid adults that happen to be in state legislatures that think the answer to gun violence is having more guns? I mean, those are things that people are fearful about. Not wanting, having friends on in their cyber world across the world that won't come visit them in the United States because their parents say, you can't go to the United States, it's too dangerous. I mean, it's challenging for me. I hear what you're saying, and I want to believe that's true. And I also have a hard time laying that against that which I see.
Well, and I don't want to sugarcoat the fact that they're handling stress that our generation didn't handle. So I'm not trying to sugarcoat it at all.
Right.
But that is the theory. And I, like you, I'm not sure I totally agree with it, but theoretically, at least, they're being culturally and well, mainly culturally rewired in a way that, I mean, I can't handle it. I tune out. I mean, on technology the second I can. I don't carry a cell phone on me because I don't want to be the slave of that sort of interconnection, which I don't perceive as necessarily healthy. The tool can be healthy to connect you with others. I mean, and I was a little surprised that Patricia said Zoom can be an even better medium.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that, and I'm not sure I agree with that. But it's a tool that can be used effectively and not in a harmful way. But I think the technology is too prevalent, and that it's not a healthy thing. But if we're moving into a future in which humans are getting augmented and artificial intelligence is infusing all decision making, it may be that what we perceive as incredible stress culturally may be preparing them for what's coming. I mean, Barbara wasn't aware of this stage. I'm not so comfortable. And you know, at the end of the light and the new human, I say, what kind of Homo universalis do we want? I mean, I was envisioning a human. I wasn't envisioning a cyborg or, you know, augmented humans. I was
Wasn't into
envisioning more
transhumanism.
conscious.
No,
Yeah.
her
Right?
last was Homo universalis amor. So her answer was love.
Yes.
We have
That's-
one more comment by Carol
Thanks.
Kilby from Canada. She's an amazing evolutionary leader in her own right. Come jump into the conversation, Carol.
Oh, thank you for the whole conversation, for the community, for the communion. And you know, that intuitiveness, that you follow that energy, you follow that consciousness that says, I need to be there tonight. And I won't go into all the reasons that I honor that somehow you have created a field that has drawn me tonight. So thank you. I think the thing that's exciting me as I move from the knowledge to the practice of noosphering, can we use that word? What excites me is the knowing about it and trying to understand it in the language that we've had thus far to try and understand it. To the reality that, okay, that what has been there, what has been created in the millennia that humans have been creating language, sign, vibrations, creating vibrational fields and so on. So the creeds, the philosophies, the treaties, broken and unbroken constitutions, pledges, so much. All of that has in fact shaped me. Like that makes my fingertips tingle. And so, okay, if that has created and shaped me, and I've come to the point where the universe is becoming conscious in me, and I know that, I'm going to consciously now start to feed that noosphere for the sake of the future. And so that to start knowing ourselves as creators of the future, that's,
I like that. I like
isn't that
Mhm.
so? Setting an intention each day, right?
Beautiful.
I'm just tingling with spirit bumps here and gratitude. It's Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada, and so for all of you, I'm thankful. And I think the last thing I want to say is that I'm so excited to hear about these practices. My work right now, Noel, is a second book on evolutionary rituals, and each ritual based in the evolutionary understanding and story, and then trying to reclaim old rituals that we have that have shaped us and create new ones that we need to live in these times of emergence. So
Well, we're going to have you back, Carol, because I believe that that's one of the things that we have lost, the sacredness of ritual. And, you know, when you think of the, we kind of annihilated, whole populations and their rituals. And when you think about how they're so spirit connected and their access to the heart and to really being with someone, those rituals that you have shared with us before, and I'm looking forward to your next book, are so rich and enriching and brings you into being versus, the thinking of it. And
yeah.
so I'm really grateful for that. But we do unfortunately have to close this off. I want to thank Laura for that wonderful interview with Patricia. Patricia, we love you. Thank you again so much. And it's a fascinating story how she came, through this and then is sharing it. And yeah, we need to, that book would be wonderful to, I didn't know it had the exercises at the end. I'm sorry, I have not read the book, but
Yeah. Every chapter has exercises. It's a really good book.
Yeah, sounds like something that we would really appreciate in our group, which, what we try to co-create is heart resonance. And when you're in that heart space, there's unity. And we do our best.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for coming tonight. And thanks again, Laura. And please come next week. We have Bonnie Bird, extremely interesting woman, and she's going to be talking about quantum healing. So thank you, everyone. Good night. See you next Thursday. And hello to Noreen from Pakistan.
Hello, Noreen.
Doing beautiful work there.
Hello to all. I'm very happy to join with this, and I am learn more in the next week. So I'm very happy to inviting me.
Oh, you're always welcome here, Noreen. She's
Thank you,
doing
Noreen.
amazing work with the women in Pakistan that were fled out, couldn't get to hospitals. If they got to a hospital, they had absolutely nothing there to help all these pregnant women. And then in her community, there has been a lot of burning of Christian churches. And so there's a lot going on in Pakistan, and Noreen she's with the CMS, a Christian ministry group, doing beautiful work. So we're thankful for you, Noreen. She tried to get to Co-Creators Convergence for 2 years in a row, but getting that visa to come to United States, but you're there in our heart, Noreen. You'll be with us in Costa Rica.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. May peace prevail on earth.
May peace prevail on earth. Thanks, Laura.